Have you ever launched a handmade product that you poured a lot of love and time into, but then just watched it sit there in your online shop collecting digital dust? Well, if so, this video is for you. We're going to talk all about how to build a product line that actually sells and attracts the right customers, as well as grows with your online business. Hi, my name is Sterling, and I'm the artist here behind Cactus Lady Creation, and I will be speaking from my 8 years of experience of running my small art business, as well as the insights from my research as to what is working for small businesses. And I love sharing that with you all here each week. So make sure that you subscribe and join back up with me. And if you want to see more on any and all of the sources that I'll be sharing here, as I do with each video, you can check out my blog, which is linked in the description box below. And if you stay all the way until the end of this video, I also have a few freebies as a thank you. A lot of artists and artisans don't have a product issue, but rather a structure issue. I know for me, for years, I just sold random pieces and creations at random prices and events and places and just hoped that something would stick. But what I began to realize is that a product line fixes this. It gives your ideal clients and customers a clear path from discovering your pieces to knowing that your piece will solve their problems. I know that one mistake that I made for the longest time was thinking that my pieces were for any and everyone. But the problem with that is that if you're creating for everyone or with no one in particular in mind, then your work ends up being for no one, and you could just end up having an undefined following and niche. Having a defined target audience and ideal customer avatar helps you to tailor your product design and messaging as well as pricing so that people can feel like your creations were made specifically for them. Also, as explained in Investopedia, a new product must satisfy a need, solve a problem, or both. Market researchers use activity and open surveys to construct psychographic profiles of their target customers. They divide consumers into 4 different categories: demographics, so age, income level, gender, and occupation; geographic, where they're located; psychographic, which is their lifestyle, attitude, interests, and values; as well as behavioral, which is based on a company's current customers. So step 1 is to start with one clear customer, and when you're clarifying your core audience, you can also ask yourself, what problem is your service, products, or art solving, and who has that problem right now? What does this person already buy, and what do they hate about the alternatives that are available to them currently? For example, maybe you're a painter and you create beautiful abstract paintings. Well, maybe your core audience's problem is that they have a space that feels empty and basic and uninspired. And so your ideal client has a beautiful home or office, but it doesn't feel complete. Then your paintings solve their problem because your art adds character, emotion, and identity into their space. And one way to really discover who is your potential customer is just to talk to 5 to 10 real people who might actually buy from you. You can ask them what frustrates them, what they've already tried, and what could make their life easier. And if you already have a following online, you can just send a survey to your audience and ask your social media followers what their pain points are. Or if you don't have a following, then you can talk to potential real customers in your niche community, or even check out Reddit forums or Facebook groups or wherever your ideal clients hang out. And you can do some research for what people's pain points are, who would be your ideal clients. And if you really want to dive further into how to figure out who your ideal client is, then you should definitely check out my video, Stop Marketing to Everyone and Find Your Ideal Client, after this one. Step 2 is to define what your core offer is. And this is the primary product or service that your customers are likely to buy from you, that define your business identity and are the most aligned with your ideal customer's problem, as well as where you should focus most of your energy on before you expand to additional products. A core offer also simplifies your marketing and makes your messaging clearer, as well as help you to avoid having too many different types of products that don't relate to one another. For example, maybe you're a potter who offers a 12-week beginner-friendly pottery course as your core offer. That course course solves the core problem for new students, which shares all of the basic skills and techniques of throwing their own pieces. With your core offer, you should be able to know the problem it solves, who it's for, and how the customer will receive it, whether that's in person or online, as well as the price. And you can cite all of this and define your core offer in these terms and how it should be packaged so that customers clearly understand what they're buying and what they'll be receiving. Also, while developing your core offer, you want to ask, what is the one thing that people will pay for the most? How does that relate back to the problem that my audience is trying to solve? And also, can I explain this offering in simply one sentence? A great exercise to do is to write down your core offer in one sentence and then refine it down until it's clear and linked directly to your ideal client's problem. So for example, if your core offer is that 12-week beginner-friendly pottery class, then your sentence can be something like, my beginner pottery course is for people who think that they're not creative, but want a calm, approachable way to learn a grounding, hands-on skill. So what this is telling us is that perhaps your core audience are really busy and don't have time to create, and so they don't think that they're creative. And so this course will be easy for them to begin their pottery journey and a nice creative outlet. And step 3 is to create a price ladder, which is a structured way to offer multiple price points in your product line so that customers can enter at a comfortable level and then naturally move up as they see value. And a typical ladder has 3 tiers: a lower price entry option that's easy to say yes to, the mid-range option that many will find appealing and is often your most popular offering, and a higher value product that solves deeper needs. So let's say that you're a painter, for example. Your entry tier could be small prints that are priced for casual buyers who want something a bit more affordable, and that mid-tier could be larger, more detailed original prints that fit most of your ideal client-base's budgets and needs. Then the premium tier could be custom paintings or limited edition work that commands a higher price. And we see this kind of pricing structure everywhere. For example, Apple applies tiered pricing for its iPhone lineup, and they're priced with entry tier, which is that base iPhone, the mid tier, which is that Pro model, and then the premium tier, which is the Pro Max and has more storage usually. And according to Axio, the best selling iPhone models are actually the base models. And in 2024, the base iPhone accounted for 42% of all sales, significantly outpacing the Pro at 19% and the Pro Max at 26%. And the great thing about adding this kind of pricing structure into your business is that once someone buys in at that entry tier and loves your style, they're much more likely to consider buying that mid-tier or even the higher tier product next time. A lot of product lines actually fail not because the products are bad, but because the different products are disconnected. So customers might buy one piece and enjoy it, but then there's not a logical next product for them to buy. Now, from a business perspective, that's a massive missed opportunity for repeat purchases and long-term customer experience. So it's great to think about this as a customer's journey. How can you increase a customer's lifetime value by improving their journey with your collection? So the next step is to make sure that your products actually connect to each other, because if they're connected, then that usually means that they'll build on top of each other and solve the next logical problem that your client might have, and they actually work better together than they do alone. So for example, a ceramic artist might sell individual mugs as an entry product, and then they'll offer a matching plate or bowl as follow-up purchases, and eventually those pieces might be bundled into a tableware set. Each item can stand alone on its own, but then also create more value and make it easier for the customer to imagine how everything will fit together. And from a business standpoint, this approach is called cross-selling and bundling, and it's been shown to increase repeat purchases when the products genuinely complement each other. So as artists and makers, it's good to think about the full customer's journey here. What do people need after they buy that first product, and what will help them go deeper into your work? One of the biggest mistakes that I know that I've made and have seen other fellow creative and handmade business owners make is building an entire collection or product line in isolation and spending weeks or even months creating and listing all of these different pieces without knowing if anyone actually wants it. But this is actually really risky from a business standpoint. So the next step is to validate your products before you go all in. And this basically means testing demand before you fully commit your time, money, or energy. Instead of guessing what will sell and wasting your efforts, you're using real signals from your audience in order to guide your decisions. And a really simple way to validate is to speak directly to your audience. You can ask them what they'd like to see next and run polls or question boxes on social media. You can even pre-sell a product before it's fully created, or even release a smaller or simplified version of your piece first and see what the reaction is like. For example, you might even announce a new collection idea and start creating some of the pieces and see which ones get the most interest on social media. You can offer a limited run of a specific piece before committing to or producing a whole bunch of them. And you can also open up a wait list for commissions before setting aside the time to create them. And this is actually linked to the business concept minimum viable products, or MVP, which is when you release a basic version of a product to test its viability in the market, learn from that feedback, and see what you can improve on with that product idea with the least amount of effort. And when your current or prospective customers participate in early voting or responding or pre-ordering, they're helping shape that final product, and this will create buy-in, which often leads to stronger sales when that product finally launches. Pre-orders and limited releases help makers also test demand as well as improve cash flow overall. And the great thing about validating your product ideas before you actually release a whole collection based around that idea is that if it doesn't have really great feedback from your audience, you can tweak it. Maybe that product idea was not strong enough, or the price point wasn't good, or maybe your audience just isn't ready. Realizing this early on will save you from burnout over time and losing time and money. Overly complex product lines can lead to burnout, inconsistent sales, and confused customers. So that's why this next step is to keep your product line simple and easy to repeat. And if you struggle to describe what you sell within a sentence or two, then your customer is likely struggling to understand it as well. And easy to repeat doesn't mean bland, but that your product line is built on a strategy and system instead of constant reinvention. And it's good to keep your product line within a consistent theme or style and repeat that same format with new designs and offer collections based around a product instead of unrelated one-offs. So for example, an illustrator might release seasonal print collections instead of random individual prints whenever they've completed them. Or a fiber artist might design pieces using the same motif across different projects within a collection, which makes it nice and cohesive. Well, those are the 6 steps to building a product line that sells. Start with one clear customer, build around one clear offer, create a simple price ladder, make products that connect to one another, and validate before you go all in. And lastly, keep it simple. And if you're still watching and realizing your product line feels scattered or all over the place, that's okay, because that's something that you can refine over time. Even making small changes like clarifying your core offer or removing one unnecessary product from a line can make all the difference. And if this video helped you, please give it a like and also subscribe, because believe it or not, 88% of you all watching this video right now are not subscribed. So please subscribe and join up with me each week. And as a thank you for watching until the end, I've got a few freebies in the description box below for you to check out, including the Handmade Product Clarity Workbook, which will help you clarify your UVP, validate a product idea before you launch, and map your product line. And I also have the quick start guide to launching your online art business, which is a 16-page questionnaire guiding you to setting up your online shop, and also helps you with planning products and marketing. Also, feel free to check out the Entrepreneur playlist next for more videos like this one. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me in the next one.